The letter arrived on an ordinary Tuesday, tucked between a pizza flyer and my cell phone bill. No return address, just my name in careful cursive that reminded me of my adoptive father Walter's handwriting. My heart did a little stutter step when I saw it. My name is June, and until that moment, I thought I had my life figured out. My husband Rhett was 6 months into his year-long assignment in Singapore. Our video calls and texts keeping our connection alive across the time zones. I had my routine, morning runs, my work as a graphic designer, weekly dinners with my adoptive mother Mabel. Everything neat and organized, just the way I liked it. But that letter changed everything. I made coffee first, a small ritual to steady my nerves. The envelope felt heavy, expensive. Inside, I found 2 items: a yellowed newspaper clipping from 25 years ago and a handwritten note on cream-colored stationery. Dear Miss Juniper Hayes, now Callahan. It began. You don't know me, but I knew your parents. The truth about their estate and your inheritance has been hidden from you. If you want to know more, meet me at the Riverside Cafe this Friday at 2 p.m. Come alone. The newspaper clipping showed a familiar headline, one I'd seen before in old scrapbooks. Local couple dies in house fire. Infant daughter survives. My parents' tragedy, condensed into 12 column inches. I called Red immediately, not caring that it was 3 a.m. in Singapore. Hey, love. His voice was thick with sleep. Everything okay? I got this weird letter. I described its contents, trying to keep my voice steady. Should I go? Sounds sketchy, he said, more alert now. Could be a scam. But they knew my maiden name. And about my parents. That information isn't exactly secret, June. Remember that identity theft seminar I dragged you to? I touched the newspaper clipping, its edges soft with age. This feels different. Then go, but be smart about it. Meet in public, tell someone where you're going. Maybe ask Mabel to sit at another table. I hesitated. I haven't told Mabel yet. Why not? I don't know. Something feels off. Ever since Sarah moved back home, Mabel's been different. More distant. The prodigal daughter returns. Rhett's tone carried a hint of warning. Just be careful, okay? I wish I was there. Me too. I glanced at our wedding photo on the desk, missing his steady presence beside me. After hanging up, I called my office and took Friday afternoon off. Then I did what I always do when I'm anxious. I cleaned. While organizing my desk drawer, I found the letter Walter had given me before he passed away 6 months ago. Open this when you need guidance, he'd said. I'd been too grief-stricken to read it then, and somehow never found the right moment after. Now, holding the mysterious letter about my parents in one hand and Walter's unopened envelope in the other, I felt caught between past and present, between the family I lost and the one that chose me. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Mother's asking about Friday dinner. You're still coming, right? She's been so lonely since Daddy died. The guilt trip was classic Sarah, subtle but effective. I started typing, of course, but stopped. For the first time in my life, I had something more important than maintaining family harmony. Can't make it this week, I replied. Work deadline. 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared. Then, that's disappointing. Mother will be crushed. I put the phone face down, Walter's words echoing in my mind. Family isn't just about blood, Junebug. It's about truth. Friday couldn't come fast enough. I needed answers, even if they shattered the careful peace I'd built around myself. Sometimes the most dangerous truths are the ones we've been protecting ourselves from all along. I pulled into the Eldridge driveway Friday morning, my stomach in knots. Not from the mysterious letter waiting in my purse, but from the sleek BMW parked in my usual spot. Sarah was home early. The front door opened before I could knock. June. Sarah's perfectly painted smile didn't reach her eyes. What a surprise. Mother's just finished making breakfast. She wore tailored pants and a silk blouse that probably cost more than my monthly rent. I glanced down at my worn jeans and felt instantly underdressed in my childhood home. I thought you weren't coming until next week, I said, following her inside. Plans change. She waved her hand dismissively. The London office can survive without me for a few months. Mother needs help sorting through Daddy's things. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon and coffee, but something was off. Mabel stood at the counter, her normally pristine apron spotted with flour, hands trembling slightly as she poured coffee. June, sweetheart. Mabel's smile seemed forced. I wasn't expecting you today. I brought those tax documents you asked for. A lie, but I needed an excuse. Everything okay? Of course. Sarah answered for her. Mother and I were just discussing some necessary changes. The house is too big for her now, and the maintenance costs. The house is paid for, I interrupted. Walter made sure of that. Taxes aren't, Sarah countered smoothly. And the roof needs replacing. Mother's retirement savings won't last forever. I watched Mabel's face carefully. She wouldn't meet my eyes, focusing instead on arranging cinnamon rolls on a plate. Walter had always handled the finances, but I'd assumed everything was secure. We could help with the repairs, I offered. Red and I. Don't be ridiculous. Sarah's laugh was like ice crackling. You can barely afford your own place. Besides, Mother's already considering my suggestion to move into Cedar Grove Retirement Community. The plate clattered as Mabel set it down too hard. One cinnamon roll tumbled onto the counter. I haven't decided anything, Mabel said quietly. Serafina's just trying to help. By selling our home? The words burst out before I could stop them. Walter loved this house. Daddy's gone, Sarah said sharply. Then, softer. We have to be practical now. My phone buzzed. A reminder about the mysterious meeting at Riverside Cafe. 2 hours away. I needed to leave soon, but leaving Mabel alone with Sarah felt wrong. Mother, remember when June was little? Sarah's tone turned syrupy sweet. How she used to follow Daddy around like a lost puppy. So desperate for a father figure. My cheeks burned. Sarah had a talent for making even happy memories sound pathetic. I should go, I said, standing. Mabel, can we talk later? Just us. Actually, Mabel fidgeted with her apron strings. Sarah and I have appointments all week. We're meeting with financial advisors, realtors. I'll keep you updated, Sarah smiled, placing a possessive hand on Mabel's shoulder. Family decisions and all that. The emphasis on family wasn't subtle. I'd heard it before, in the weeks after Walter's funeral, when Sarah suddenly reappeared after years of sparse holiday visits. Walking to my car, I heard them arguing through the kitchen window. Can't keep babying her. Sarah's voice drifted out. She's not really. The window slammed shut. I sat in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel. The mysterious letter about my parents' estate felt heavier in my purse. Whatever secrets it held, they'd have to wait. Something was very wrong in the Eldridge house. And I couldn't shake the feeling that Sarah's sudden interest in helping had nothing to do with family loyalty. My phone lit up with a text from Rhett. How's it going? Ready for your mystery meeting? I typed back. Change of plans. Need to dig through Walter's old office files first. Something's not adding up. Be careful, he replied. Sarah's always played the long game. He was right. And this time, she was playing with our family's future. I started the car, heading not to Riverside Cafe, but to my old storage unit where I'd boxed up Walter's papers. If Sarah wanted to talk finances, I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. The mystery of my parents would have to wait. Right now, I had a promise to keep to the father who chose me. The storage unit smelled like old books and broken promises. I'd been digging through Walter's files for hours, my phone forgotten in the car, when I found the first letter. It was tucked inside a folder marked Family Matters, Private, written in Walter's careful hand 6 months before his death. Dearest Mabel, it began. I know about the loans. I found the papers Sarah convinced you to sign. Whatever she's told you, selling the house won't fix this. My hands shook as I read further. According to Walter's letter, Mabel had taken out multiple loans against the house, all co-signed by Sarah. The amounts were staggering. But why? The Eldridges had always lived comfortably, if not extravagantly. Deeper in the box, I found bank statements, legal documents, and more letters. Each piece revealed a pattern I'd been too blind to see. Sarah hadn't just returned home to help. She'd orchestrated this entire situation years ago. A noise outside the storage unit made me jump. Keys jingling, footsteps approaching. June! Sarah's voice echoed through the corridor. Your car's outside. What a coincidence. I scrambled to gather the papers, shoving them into my bag. Just cleaning out some old stuff. Sarah appeared in the doorway, blocking the light. Mother's worried sick. You missed our family dinner, aren't answering your phone. I lost track of time. She stepped inside, designer heels clicking on concrete. Her eyes scanned the boxes, lingering on the one marked Walter's office. Anything interesting? Her tone was light, but her shoulders tensed. Just memories. I stood, clutching my bag. How did you know I was here? Mother mentioned you stored things here after Daddy died. She picked up a framed photo of Walter and me at my college graduation. She's not getting any younger, you know. The stress of maintaining that big house, managing finances. The stress of owing hundreds of thousands in loans, you mean? The photo slipped from her fingers, glass shattering on impact. Oops. I found the letters, Sarah. Walter knew what you were doing. Did he? She stepped over the broken glass. And what exactly was I doing, June? Helping my mother access her home's equity? Protecting her financial interests? Unlike some people, I actually contribute to this family. By convincing her to take loans she can't repay? Setting her up to lose everything. You don't understand business. Her smile turned sharp. Or family, really. How could you? You're just some stray daddy brought home. The words hit like a physical blow, but I forced myself to stand straighter. Walter made me promise to protect them, Mabel and the house. Both. Walter's dead. She moved closer, her perfume overwhelming in the small space. And his little charity case needs to back off. Mother's already signed the listing agreement. The house goes on the market Monday. She wouldn't. She did. Because she trusts her real daughter. Sarah reached for my bag. Now, whatever papers you think you found. I yanked away, backing toward the door. Don't. Fine. She smoothed her blouse. Keep them. It won't change anything. By the way, I had an interesting chat with someone today about your parents. The real ones? Fascinating story. My heart stopped. The mysterious letter, the missed meeting. What did you do? Protected my family's interests. Like always. She stepped past me into the corridor. Better hurry home, June. Looks like rain. I waited until her footsteps faded before sinking to the floor, surrounded by fragments of the broken photo. My phone had 17 missed calls. 3 from the mysterious number that had sent the letter, the rest from Mabel. The last text message made my blood run cold. I'm so sorry, June. Sarah showed me the truth about everything. It's better this way. Please don't fight this. I called Rhett, not caring that it was 4 a.m. in Singapore. They're selling the house, I said when he answered. Sarah's been planning this for years. She's got something on my birth parents too, and my voice cracked. June, listen to me. His voice steadied me. Remember what Walter always said about truth? That it comes out in its own time. Exactly. So let's make this Sarah's time. He paused. Check your email. I've been doing some digging of my own about your sister's London office. Turns out it doesn't exist. I opened my laptop, rain beginning to drum on the storage unit's metal roof. Whatever game Sarah was playing, she wasn't the only one who could uncover secrets. Walter had taught me that family was worth fighting for, and I was just getting started. I spent the weekend buried in Rhett's research. The London office where Sarah claimed to work? A virtual address. Her impressive investment portfolio? A web of shell companies and borrowed money. Every thread I pulled revealed another lie. Monday morning, I drove to the real estate office listed on the sale agreement Mabel had signed. The agent's nameplate read Thomas Green, but the face behind the desk was familiar from Walter's funeral, Sarah's college boyfriend. June Callahan. He straightened his tie. Sarah mentioned you might stop by. Did she mention the fraudulent loans too? His smile flickered. I'm not sure what you're implying. I placed Walter's letters on his desk. These show a pattern of financial manipulation dating back 3 years. Sarah convinced Mabel to take out loans, then used the money for her fake business ventures. That's a serious accusation. He slid the papers back without reading them. And irrelevant. The listing agreement is legal and binding. Is it? Because I have proof you're not licensed to sell real estate in this state. The color drained from his face. Look, Sarah just asked for a favor. Said her mother needed help. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Still want to know about your parents? Coffee shop across from your office. Now, keep the copies, I told Thomas, standing. Show them to your lawyer. You'll need one. The coffee shop was nearly empty when I arrived. A woman sat in the corner, gray hair pulled back severely, reading a newspaper. She lowered it as I approached. You're late, she said. I'm Margaret Winters. I was your mother's best friend. My hands trembled as I sat. You sent the first letter. And you missed our meeting. She studied me over her coffee cup. Dealing with Serafina instead, I assume? How do you? I've been watching. Waiting for the right time. She pulled out an envelope. Your mother left this with me before she died. Said to give it to you when the vultures started circling. Inside was a key and a handwritten note. Storage Unit 23, Central Lock and Key. Everything you need to know is there. Trust no one named Eldridge. Love, Mom. I don't understand. Margaret leaned forward. Your parents didn't die in an accident, June. They were investigating financial fraud at Walter Eldridge's bank. The fire was meant to silence them. The room spun. Walter would never. Not Walter. His first wife. Serafina's mother. My phone lit up with texts from Mabel. Where are you? Sarah says you're threatening her friend Thomas. Please come home. We need to talk. Why tell me now? I asked Margaret. Because history's repeating itself. Sarah's using the same playbook as her mother: isolate, manipulate, destroy. Only this time she's targeting you. I stood abruptly, knocking over my untouched coffee. I need to go. The storage unit, Margaret called after me. Go today, before Sarah figures out what you know. Outside, I called Rhett. Voicemail. I texted instead. Emergency. Need you to look up someone named Margaret Winters. And any connection between Walter's bank and my parents. Another text from Mabel arrived. Sarah's lawyer is here. Says you're harassing Thomas. Please stop making things worse. I started my car, hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the wheel. The storage facility was across town. I could make it there and back before. A tap on my window made me jump. Sarah stood there, smiling. Going somewhere? She asked through the glass. Mother's waiting at home. Time for a family meeting. In my rearview mirror, I saw Margaret watching from the coffee shop door, shaking her head in warning. Two paths stretched before me. Face whatever trap Sarah had set at home, or follow my dead mother's clue to the truth. Either way, someone I loved would get hurt. I put the car in reverse. Tell Mabel I'll be late. Sarah's smile hardened. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, June. Some secrets should stay buried. I drove away, her words echoing in my head. In the rearview mirror, I watched her pull out her phone, no doubt setting the next phase of her plan in motion. The key in my pocket felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Whatever waited in that storage unit, I had a feeling it would change everything. Again, central lock and key was a maze of identical metal doors, each one holding someone else's secrets. Unit 23 was at the far end, tucked away in shadow. The key trembled in my hand as my phone buzzed again. Mabel's 15th call in an hour. The lock clicked open, and musty air rushed out. Inside, stacked bankers' boxes filled the small space, each labeled with dates from over 20 years ago. On top lay a manila envelope with my name on it. My mother's handwriting. My real mother's. Before I could open it, footsteps echoed through the corridor. Heavy. Deliberate. June. Mabel's voice shaky and uncertain. Sarah said I'd find you here. Of course she did. I shoved the envelope into my bag and stepped out, pulling the door almost shut behind me. Mabel looked smaller somehow, wrapped in the cardigan Walter had given her last Christmas. What are you doing here? I could ask you the same thing. Sarah's worried about you. These accusations about Thomas, the loans. She wrung her hands. She says you're having some kind of breakdown. Did she tell you about the fake real estate license? The shell companies. Stop it. Mabel's voice cracked. Just stop. I know you're hurting since Walter died, but this vendetta against your sister. She's not my sister. The words came out sharper than intended. And she's stealing everything you have. She's protecting me. The house is too expensive, too much work. The retirement community will be better. I pulled out Walter's letters. Read these. Please. They explain everything. Mabel backed away. Sarah warned me you'd try this. Said you'd use Walter's memory to manipulate me. Manipulate you? Like she's doing. She's my daughter. And what am I? The silence stretched between us like a chasm. In it, I heard everything Mabel couldn't say. My phone lit up with a text from Rhett. Margaret Winters checks out. Former investigative reporter. Your parents were her sources on major banking fraud story. Never published. Fire happened night before Expose was supposed to run. Another set of footsteps approached. Sarah appeared behind Mabel, Thomas trailing behind her. Family reunion? Sarah's smile was razor-sharp. How convenient. We can all discuss the restraining order together. Restraining order? My voice sounded distant, hollow. Thomas stepped forward, legal papers in hand. You've been harassing my client and interfering with legitimate business dealings. This order prevents you from contacting Mrs. Eldridge or entering her property. Her property? I looked at Mabel. Mom, please. Don't call me that. Mabel's words hit like physical blows. Not now. Not after this. Sarah wrapped an arm around her mother's shoulders. The police are on their way. You should go. The storage unit, I said desperately. Did you know about it? About what really happened to my parents. Something flickered in Mabel's eyes. Fear? Recognition? But Sarah steered her away before she could respond. Last chance to leave quietly, Sarah whispered as she passed. Or should we discuss what really happened the night Walter died? My blood ran cold. I'd been with Walter that night, helping him organize his office. He'd seemed fine when I left. The heart attack happened hours later. Hadn't it? Footsteps again, this time accompanied by radio static. Police. I ducked back into the storage unit, grabbing the envelope and one box at random. Through the crack in the door, I watched Mabel lean into Sarah, both of them talking to the officers pointing down the corridor. My phone buzzed one last time. Rhett, booked emergency flight home. Don't confront them alone. Whatever happened to your parents, Sarah knows more than she's saying. I slipped out the back exit as police flashlights swept the hallway. In my rearview mirror, I watched Mabel crying into Sarah's shoulder, the perfect picture of a mother comforted by her devoted daughter. The envelope from my mother sat heavy in my passenger seat. Whatever truth it held would have to wait. First, I needed to understand what Sarah meant about Walter's death. Because suddenly, I wasn't sure I knew anything about either of my families anymore. The box from my mother's storage unit sat unopened on my kitchen table for 3 days. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time I reached for it, Sarah's words echoed in my head. What really happened the night Walter died? My phone lit up. Rhett, landing in 2 hours. Don't do anything until I get there. Too late. I'd already called Margaret Winters and arranged a meeting at the cemetery where Walter was buried. Neutral ground. No restraining orders could keep me from visiting my adoptive father's grave. I found Margaret already there, standing before Walter's headstone. You look terrible, she said without turning around. Did you know? My voice cracked. About Walter's death? Yet suspicions. She handed me a folder. Bank records from the night he died. Large transfers from the Eldridge account to offshore holdings. Sarah's holdings. My hands shook as I read. The timestamps showed transactions at 11:42 p.m., nearly an hour after Walter was pronounced dead. His passwords, I whispered. Someone used his passwords. The question is, who was with him last? I was. I'd helped him organize files, watched him take his heart medication, left him working at his desk around 9 p.m. His medication. The pills, I said. Sarah had been organizing his prescriptions since she moved back. Said Mabel couldn't handle it anymore. Margaret's expression hardened. June, there's something else. About the night your parents died. Gravel crunched behind us. Sarah stood there, elegant even in morning black. Having a nice chat about old times? Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Margaret. Still chasing conspiracy theories after all these years? Still covering up murders? Margaret shot back. Careful. Sarah's voice turned silky. Accusations like that could be dangerous. Just ask June's parents. I have proof, I said. About Walter's accounts, the fraudulent transfers. You have nothing. Sarah stepped closer. Just like your parents had nothing. Theories, suspicions, but no proof. Want to know why? Because Daddy Dearest destroyed it all. Walter would never. To protect his precious adopted daughter? He burned everything the night your parents died. Their evidence, their files, everything that could have implicated the bank. And Mother's first husband, my father, took the fall instead. My world tilted. That's not possible. Why do you think they took you in? Guilt. Love. She laughed. Insurance. As long as they had you, your parents' other copies of evidence would stay buried. Walter's one decent act was keeping you away from the truth. You're lying. Am I? Check the box you stole. Mother's been looking for it for years. I opened the folder Margaret had given me. Behind the bank records was a photo. Walter, 20 years younger, feeding papers into a fire. In the background, barely visible, my parents' house already beginning to burn. He loved me, I whispered. He used you. Like I used him. Sarah's mask finally cracked, showing raw hatred. He chose you over his own family, protecting you while I was sent away to boarding school. But now, she pulled out her phone. Now I have everything. The house, Mother's trust, and proof of your breaking and entering at the storage facility. The police are very interested in that security footage. Sirens wailed in the distance. Margaret grabbed my arm. June, run. I'll hold them off. But, your husband's flight lands soon. Go. And June. She pressed a key into my hand. Storage Unit 17. What your mother really left for you. I ran, Sarah's laughter following me through the headstones. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Like mother, like daughter. Running away when things get hot. The sirens grew closer. I had maybe an hour before they found me. An hour to choose. Run to Rhett and leave everything behind, or face what waited in Storage Unit 17. Behind me, I heard Sarah talking to the police, playing the grieving daughter standing at her father's grave. She'd won. She had everything. Almost everything. I started my car, the key to Unit 17 burning in my pocket. Whatever truth waited there, I owed it to both my families, birth and chosen, to find it. Even if it destroyed what little I had left. Storage Unit 17 was already open when I arrived. Inside, Mabel stood holding a thick manila envelope, her hands trembling. "I knew you'd come here," she said quietly. "After the cemetery." Police sirens wailed in the distance. I had minutes, maybe less. "How long have you known?" I asked. "About Walter? About my parents. Since the beginning." She held out the envelope. "These belong to your mother. The real evidence she gathered about the bank fraud. Walter didn't burn everything that night." Footsteps echoed through the corridor. Sarah's voice carried, speaking to someone. "Down here, officer. She's unstable, possibly dangerous." "Take it," Mabel urged. "Quick." I grabbed the envelope, but Mabel didn't let go. Our eyes met. "Why now?" I whispered. "Because I watched Sarah kill Walter." Tears streaked her face. She switched his heart medication. I saw her do it, but I was too afraid to stop her. Too afraid to lose another child. "Mother!" Sarah appeared in the doorway, 2 police officers behind her. "Step away from her. She's not well. Tell them." I pleaded with Mabel. "Tell them the truth." Mabel's grip on the envelope loosened. She turned to face her daughter, shoulders straightening. "I choose truth," she began. A gunshot cracked through the air. Mabel crumpled. Behind Sarah, Thomas stood holding a pistol, his hands shaking. The police officers, not real officers, I realized too late, moved to block the exit. "Really, Mother?" Sarah sighed. "After everything I did to protect our family? You're not protecting anyone," I said, backing away. "You're just like your father, destroying lives to hide your crimes." My father was weak. He confessed, went to prison. I learned from his mistakes. She reached for the envelope. "Hand it over, June. End this. Like you ended Walter's life. He was going to tell you everything. 20 years we kept you close, kept you quiet without even knowing it. Then his guilt got the better of him." She laughed bitterly. "He actually thought you'd choose him over the truth." Movement caught my eye. A shadow in the corridor. "You're wrong," I said, stalling. "Walter chose truth in the end, just like Mabel did. And look where it got them." Sarah nodded to Thomas. "No more games." Thomas raised the gun again. "Drop it." Rhett's voice boomed through the corridor. He emerged from the shadows, Margaret Winters beside him, both holding badges. "FBI. Hands where we can see them." Real police officers flooded the storage unit. Thomas dropped the gun. Sarah's fake officers tried to run, but were quickly caught. "You." Sarah stared at me in disbelief. "You knew." I called Rhett the moment Margaret told me about Unit 17. "The FBI's been building a case against you for months. They just needed proof of how far you'd go." Mabel stirred, groaning. The bullet had grazed her shoulder. As medics rushed in, she grabbed my hand. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "for not being stronger sooner. You were strong when it mattered most." Sarah fought the handcuffs, screaming about lawyers and family loyalty. But her mask had finally cracked completely, revealing the desperate, angry child who'd never gotten over being sent away. Rhett pulled me close as they led her out. "You okay?" I watched Mabel being helped onto a stretcher, the envelope of evidence safe in an FBI evidence bag. In it lay the truth about both my families, the ones I'd lost and the ones I'd found. "No," I answered honestly. "But I will be." "June," Mabel called weakly. "Walter left something else for you. In his study, behind the painting of the lake house. He said you'd know what to do with it when the time came." I thought of Walter's last night, organizing files, taking pills that would kill him. Had he known then how it would end? Had he left one final truth to find? "Let's go home," Rhett said softly. "But first, we had one more secret to uncover. One more choice between truth and family." This time I knew which I'd choose. 6 months after Sarah's arrest, I stood in Walter's study for the last time. The painting of the lake house hung crooked on the wall, just as we'd left it after finding his final gift. A USB drive containing 20 years of carefully documented evidence against both Sarah and her father. "That's the last box," Rhett said, setting down a cardboard container labeled photos. "Movers will be here tomorrow for the furniture." Mabel had decided to sell the house after all, but on her own terms. She'd chosen a small cottage near our new place instead of Sarah's retirement community. Baby steps toward rebuilding trust. "Found something?" Rhett asked as I lifted the painting. Behind it was a small envelope I'd missed before, my name written in Walter's shaky hand. Inside was a single photograph, Walter and me at the lake house, both laughing as I tried to bait a fishing hook. On the back, he'd written, "Family is a choice we make every day. Choose wisdom over vengeance. Choose love over fear. Choose truth always." "He knew," I said softly. All those years he knew everything. And he chose you. Rhett squeezed my shoulder. Every day. The doorbell rang. Mabel stood on the porch, arms still in a sling, holding a familiar manila envelope. The FBI returned your mother's evidence, she said. I thought, maybe you'd want to read it together? I hesitated. The truth about my parents' murder had helped convict Sarah and her father, but there were still parts of that night I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Actually, I said, I have something to show you first. I led her to the study, showed her the photograph and Walter's message. Oh, June. Her good hand trembled as she touched the image. He loved that lake house. Said it was the only place where titles didn't matter, daughter, stepdaughter, adopted. Just family. That's why I bought it. She looked up sharply. What? The lake house. Rhett and I closed on it last week. I pulled out the keys. It needs work, but we thought maybe you'd like to help. Make new memories. Tears spilled down her cheeks. After everything I did, everything I let happen. Family is a choice we make every day, I quoted. Sometimes we choose wrong. Sometimes we get second chances. Mabel's hand found mine, squeezed tight. Sarah's sentencing is next week, she said quietly. I know. I'm testifying against her. Her voice cracked. A mother shouldn't have to. But truth matters more than blood. Walter taught me that, in the end. Through the study window, I could see Margaret Winters pulling up in her car. She'd been helping us sort through the remaining evidence, turning years of secrets into a book that would tell both families' stories. Ready? Rhett asked, holding up my mother's envelope. I looked around the study one last time. Here, Walter had made his final choice, taking pills he knew were wrong, buying time for truth to emerge. Here, Sarah had sealed her fate, choosing vengeance over love. Here, Mabel had found her strength, choosing truth over blood. And here I stood, my adopted mother on one side, my husband on the other, a photograph of better days in my hand. Ahead lay the lake house, waiting to be filled with new memories. Behind lay 2 families' worth of secrets, finally brought to light. Actually, I said, let's save it for the lake house. Some stories are better told where titles don't matter. Mabel smiled through her tears. Walter would have liked that. We left the study together, leaving the painting hanging crooked on the wall. Let the new owners wonder what secrets it kept. Our truth lay elsewhere, in a quiet place by the water where a man once taught his chosen daughter to fish, to love, and to choose wisdom over vengeance. Some choices echo through generations. Some truths take years to surface. Some families are born, some found, and some rebuilt from the ashes of what came before. In the end, we choose which kind we want to be. Every single day.